Good morning. Welcome to this hour of worship at Unity Church-Unitarian. I'm Reverend Laura Cowton. I use the pronouns she and her, and I'm sharing this worship this morning with Worship Associate Betsy Hearn, and our guest minister today is Rev Jessica Clay. Some of you may remember her as Unity's Hallman Ministerial Intern from the year 2016 and 17. And Rev Jessica is now the lead minister of our neighboring UU Church in White Bear Lake. Welcome. Welcome, Jessica. And welcome to you all. Thank you for being here this morning, especially those of you who were up late last night auctioneering with me here. And those either here in the sanctuary or in the comfort of your own sanctuary at home online or viewing this later, we welcome you, we see you, we know that you are here with us. Whoever you are, whatever gifts or burdens you are carrying, whoever and however you choose to express your love in this world, you are very welcome here at Unity, and we are enriched by your presence. If you are new to this congregation, just visiting us, please do fill out the visitor card in the back of the pew in front of you, or online, send a message to us so we know who you are and how we might be able to serve you and connect with you better. And please stop by after the service in the foyer, as we'll be there to greet you on your way into coffee hour for community. This is a vibrant church. And I'm still learning how vibrant it is indeed with each new event. I'd like to draw your attention to the insert in your order of service this week at Unity, jam-packed with opportunities for engagement and to deepen your spiritual life. This coming weekend, I'm just going to point out a few things for your attention. This coming weekend is the 35th year of the youth musical here at Unity, written for the 35th year by Sandy Waterman. Please stop by the table in the parish hall to get your tickets and to write a note to congratulate Sandy. Today's Finding Yourself at Unity topic is Membership 101. Yes, for beginners. Learn what becoming a member and being a member of Unity means. It's held upstairs in the Gannett room at 10:15 between the services. And two more. The art team is very excited to be hosting two very special exhibits this month. So you can join in a reception this coming Friday from 5:30 to 7:30 in the center room and meet artists from Fresh Eyes Art, a day program of the Midwest Special Services where artists with disabilities can fully express their creativity. And today, very special today, after each service, you can meet the artist Kim Gordon, whose vibrant batik work is hanging in the parish hall. And March is Minnesota Food Share Month. In addition to bringing non-perishable food items for the food shelf each time you come to church, we hope that you'll join Unity's Act for Earth team and Unity's Evergreen Quilters at Wellspring Wednesday this week for Hidden Hunger, a lively conversation around food access. So many ways to engage. But now, let us put the outside world aside and settle in here for our time of worship together.
All that we have ever loved and all that we have ever been stands with us on the brink of all that we aspire to create. A deeper peace, a larger love, a more embracing hope, a deeper joy in this life we share. Come, let us worship together. As we light our chalice, please join in the unison words. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith, the light of truth and the warmth of love.
Our responsive reading today is number 555 in the back of your gray hymnal. Some things will never change.
Some things will always be the same.
The voice of forest water in the night, a woman's laughter in the dark, the clean, hard rattle of raked gravel, the cricketing stitch of midday in hot meadows, the delicate web of children's voices in bright air.
These things will never change.
The glitter of sunlight on roughened water, the glory of the stars, the innocence of morning, the smell of the sea in harbors.
These things will always be the same.
The feathery blur and smoky buddings of young boughs, and something there that comes and goes and never can be recaptured, the thorn of spring, the sharp and tongueless cry.
These things will never change.
The leaf, the blade, the flower, the wind that cries and sleeps and wakes again, the trees whose stiff arms clash and tremble in the dark, and the dust of lovers long since buried in the earth.
All things belonging to the earth will never change.
All things proceeding from the earth to seasons, all things that lapse and change and come again upon the earth, these come up from the earth that never changes. They go back into the earth that lasts forever.
Only the earth endures, but it endures forever.
The tarantula, the adder, and the asp will also never change.
Pain and death will always be the same.
But under the pavements, trembling like a pulse, under the buildings, trembling like a cry, under the waste of time, under the hoof of the beast, above the broken bones of cities, there will be something growing like a flower.
Something bursting from the earth again, forever deathless, faithful, coming into life again, like April.
Each time we gather for worship, we set aside a moment to expand the caring ministry of this congregation. Let us take a moment now to settle ourselves, to pause, shake out your shoulders a little bit. Let us take a deep breath together. Let us enter into a time of meditation, reflection, prayer. As we share with one another the milestones of joys and sorrows, and celebrations and concerns that mark our lives from the beginnings to their ends, we weave a beautiful tapestry of community together, greater than any one of us. these threads we hold and are held by one another. Today, we congratulate and celebrate with Suzanne and Mike McDonald, who are delighted to welcome their first grandchild into the world. Zoe Grace McDonald was determined to be born, and after 30-plus hours of labor, she did it. We heartily welcome this new Redeemer into the world. We send prayers for continued healing to Becky Gonzalez Campoy, who is slowly recovering from a back surgery on February 20th under the watchful eyes of puppies and loving husband Mike. And we also celebrate with Becky and Mike as their new grandbaby, Theodore Michael Gonzalez Cameron, was born in the wee hours of this morning. Welcome, little Teddy. Our prayers of healing and strength surround Ellen Green, who suffered another stroke on Monday and is now recovering well in rehab, making good progress with speech and mobility, and it will be a journey, supported by the love of her family and this caring community. And we lift into our caring embrace Unity member Jill Thompson as she grieves her father, Bob Thompson, who died on February 25th. Jill says he had a passion for theology and was looking forward to visiting Unity with Jill, having just recently moved home to Minnesota from Arizona. He will be dearly missed by many. Emily Richardson asks that we hold her dad, Lowell Richardson, and their family in our caring embrace and send healing prayers to Lowell, who suffered a pulmonary embolism last week and is recovering in hospital. And we also lift in our healing embrace Jennifer Bjorhus, who's in hospital and should be returning home soon to her family, Ranjit and Kai. Among us, there are many hearts that ache with grief and loss, bodies and spirits suffering pain and illness, in need of healing, or preparing with loved ones as they approach their final days. There are those among us who are living on the margins of poverty, facing uncertainties about their futures and longing for stability. Among us are those struggling with addictions, with fear and loneliness, and mental health concerns, longing for a sense of belonging and safety. And among us, too, are those celebrating new life, new opportunities, new loves, bold achievements. Our hearts expand to hold all of this as we bear witness to one another. I invite you to speak into this holy sanctuary or into the silent sanctuary of your own heart the names of those that you would like to lift into our communal embrace today. Please pray with me. Holy One, God of mercy, Spirit of life and compassion, we gather humbly together and witness to one another's lives, seeking solace, guidance, and the strength to navigate the challenges that surround us, and company on our journey through all that we face. In a world that often feels fraught with division and discord, we lift our hearts in prayer for unity and understanding. May we find the courage to bridge the gaps that divide us, to reach out across lines of difference with curiosity, compassion, and empathy, creating new opportunities for relationship to bud and bloom. We hold in our hearts those who are suffering in mind and body and in spirit. We pray for healing and comfort for those who are living with illness, grief, or despair. And as we witness the unfolding of global events, the desperation of fear and hatred, the cruelty of hunger and war machines, we pray for the leaders of the world to recognize and embrace the inherent worthiness and dignity of every person, and for their decisions to be guided by love. In the midst of uncertainty and upheaval, we strive to be beacons of hope and agents of change. Grant us the wisdom to discern the paths of justice and healing, of truth and forgiveness, and the strength to walk boldly upon them. And may we remember to lift in gratitude all the blessings and richness of our lives, creating and nourishing a fertile place in our hearts, forever more and more love to grow. We lift these prayers and intentions together as we share now in a moment of silence.
lies before us. Waken here to keep us strong. Lend our voices in the chorus of creation's living song. Courage bids us lift our eyes upward to the shining skies. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on. Loyal guides in love and duty, lead us with a trusted light. Blessed are they whose inward beauty shows the path of truth and right. Honor is the earthly prize. By their work we realize faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. We have shared a radiant hour when the truth has made us free, and the Spirit's gracious power dreamed of good that yet shall be. Right the path before us lies. Joyful pilgrims now we rise. Life calls us on. 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 Life calls us
O you who are makers, makers of beauty, of paintings and pottery and sculpture, blessed is the making. You who make with hands and hearts and minds, who make out of breath and bones and blood human lives, blessed are the makers. Blessed are those who make us laugh, who make jokes and faces and toys. Blessed are those who make messes, who make trouble and friends, and when needed, make up. Blessed are those who make do, who make it last, make it work, make beds, and make time for others. Blessed are those who make love, who make out and make more and make mistakes. Blessed are those who make coffee and tea, who make conversation, who make meaning in the face of tragedy, who make merriment and awaken joy. Blessed are those who make peace, for they shall inherit the earth.
It is so good to return to this beautiful sanctuary. I have so many fond memories of my internship here, and I preach this morning from this place of great gratitude for you all nurturing me into my ministry in that formative year. I returned here in fall of 2022 for Reverend Rob Eller Isaac's memorial, and will be here again to mourn and remember Reverend Jan Eller Isaacs in May. Know that my heart grieves deeply with you all. They were and are beloved. 7 years ago, at my ordination and installation at my previous congregation, First Parish Brewster in Brewster, Massachusetts, Jan gave the sermon and Rob gave the charge to the congregation. Rob had been so supportive when I was candidating, reading the congregation's record with me and offering his advice and wisdom. And he had a lot of advice and wisdom. This congregation had had a lot of change in their history. They had recent ministerial misconduct, and anxiety was high within those walls. Therefore, during the charge to the congregation, he had the board come down in front and turn and face the congregation, and he gave them 2 pieces of advice. The first was to stay. When things got tough, when conflict showed up, to stay and do the work of being in covenantal community together. I reminded the congregation of this when conflict arose and was grateful to those whose love and faith showed up when anxiety was high in the years to come. The second charge was to nurture their spiritual practices. This is no surprise to you all, right? Many of you remember this about Rob, his deep commitment and invitation to you all to nurture your spiritual practices. I remember when I was a new intern, 1 or 2 weeks in, and myself and the other intern that year, Nick Cable, we went away with the executive team for a retreat to begin the year together. Nick and I were told every morning would begin with spiritual practices. This was not optional. And it was an hour of silence. What was optional was what you did with that hour. I observed Rob and Jan taking time to meditate and journal. I could see the ease with which they moved through their long-standing routine of starting each day with these practices. I admired this, and as I began my new ministry in Brewster, I committed to this as well, setting aside time each morning to commit to journaling, meditation, and reading poetry. I knew that creativity and a relationship with the divine, this wouldn't happen unless I made space for it. I knew that I needed to be intentional about how I nurtured my relationship with the holy. The theme for this month, the month of March here at Unity, is creativity. And creativity is creating space for the holy, but it looks different for all of us. Growing up, I always thought that creativity was being at a Martha Stewart level of things. Maybe you did too, being able to take a bunch of fabric, maybe some glitter and pipe cleaners, and make a centerpiece from that. And in many ways, for me, creativity was linked to perfectionism, to creating things just so, and I knew I never possessed those skills. I thought creativity was a physical, tangible thing attached to the production of something. My first career was as an occupational therapist. So when I interviewed for occupational therapy school, they brought us into a room, put us in teams of 3. They had a bunch of craft paper and supplies on the table and said, "Make the tallest tower you can out of this." Where was Martha Stewart when I needed her? I'm happy to report I still got into the program. What I've learned about creativity over the years is that creativity is more about knowing there is no one right way to do things, that it's about how we respond to life. It's about having an openness and a curiosity towards life. A friend of mine has a spiritual practice of doing things she isn't good at, a spiritual practice of embracing the unknown and practicing humility. When I first began meditation, I quickly gave up on it because I wasn't good at it. I thought that meditation was sitting down and having no thoughts. But in seminary, when my spiritual director told me meditation can happen any time of the day, when I was brushing my teeth or taking a walk or washing the dishes, that it was about bringing mindfulness to my life, I realized I had been taking a narrow view towards it, limiting myself, limiting my imagination of what was possible. As I moved through my ministry at First Parish Brewster, I was committed to my spiritual practices, to making space in my life to nurture creativity. And then we all know what happened 4 years ago in March of 2020. The pandemic happened. My spiritual practices went out the window. My creativity was at an all-time low. And yet, in the midst of this crisis, all of our congregations had to dream in new ways about how to keep our communities together when the world shut down. And the pandemic taught us on this bone-deep level that we may not know what the future looks like, but we can do hard things together, and that we carry the imprint of each other on our hearts when we are physically apart. It slowed us down. It reminded us of what is important and of the fragility of life. Many of you know, in the years since I was an intern here, I've had 2 children, my daughters Penelope and Eleanor. When I was pregnant with Penelope, I took a writer's class and was working on a memoir that I had written a year before. When Penelope died suddenly at 5 days old, I knew I needed to write a book about her. I could feel the words within me, the grief within me yearning to get out. But I was in no mental space to create. All I could do was move through each day. And so during that first year of grief, I slept. I slept a lot. And I spent 1 month walking the Camino de Santiago. I texted Rob and Jan while I walked that path. They were with me as I walked and cried my way through the footsteps that they had traveled years before. But before and after walking 500 miles, I took a lot of naps. While I was on the Camino, I was listening for the voice of God. I wanted God to tell me why this had happened and to tell me how I was going to get through it. I wanted God to show me the way. And I never heard a voice or the voice of God coming through the window at night, but the divine showed up for me in the caring actions of others and in the yellow arrows that pointed me on my way. And just a little note, I received so many cards from people in this congregation after she died, and I want you to know they mattered. I kept those, and they are precious to me. What I learned in that year and the years since of great, deep grief is that there are still things within us waiting to be born, and sometimes it's just not the right season. Sometimes we just need to rest. And that rest, it can be holy and sacred, And sometimes rest can allow space for what is yet to come. That was a moment of rest for you all. The French poet, filmmaker, author, and artist Jean Cocteau once said this on creativity. He said, "I do not believe that inspiration falls from heaven. I think it rather the result of a profound indolence and of our incapacity to put to work certain forces in ourselves. These unknown forces work deep within us with the aid of elements of daily life, its scenes and passions. And when they burden us and oblige us to conquer the kind of somnolence in which we indulge ourselves like invalids to try to prolong dream and dread, resuming contact with reality, in short, when the work that makes itself in us and in spite of us demands to be born, we can believe that this work comes to us from beyond and is offered to us by the gods." To translate that incredibly meaty sentence, if you lost track, it's okay, I'm going to translate it for you. He's saying that creativity comes when you sleep. He then goes on to say that he was struggling with writing a play, and in the middle of the night he awoke, and the 3 acts laid themselves out before him. He was speaking against an omnipotent God who would bestow this gift of creativity, instead stating that it comes from within us, it is waiting to be born, but we need rest to allow it to come forth. And depending on where you are in life right now, you may need more rest than others. Or you might be in a time with a lot of spaciousness. And if this is you, if you have a lot of spaciousness, I charge you to be intentional about your commitment to your spiritual practices. But if you are someone whose well has run dry, who is carrying grief and trauma and just trying to make it through each day, rest and trust that what will come out is still within you. It's still there taking its time. We can do hard things, and everything has its season. I still haven't written that book about Penelope, but it's in there, and it will come forth when it needs to. One more story from my formation for you all. When I was in seminary, I was convinced that parish ministry was not for me. I thought I would be a hospital or a prison chaplain. And so on my way to my first General Assembly the summer after I started seminary, I sat next to a colleague, and she was asking me, where are you going to practice? And I said, definitely not parish. And she replied, I thought the same until I did my internship. When I did my internship, I fell in love with parish ministry. Maybe keep yourself open to that. I loved that invitation from her, and I did that here. I fell in love with parish ministry here, and I've taken that love with me out into the other congregations that I've served. What I love about serving the parish is witnessing the ways that we show up for each other. Witnessing the ways that we hold each other when life breaks our hearts, and it does break our hearts sometimes daily. And the ways that we celebrate and go towards joy with each other as well. I think you did that last night at your auction. And so you, dear ones, are in this time period of uncertainty, of this liminal space. You are in a doorway. And yet my hope for you is that you continue to go towards each other and take deep care of each other in this. In the years since we have seen each other, we have all endured so much. And when I look out at all of you, I see your resilience shining forth. I see strength in your eyes. I see the divine within you. I see the past, the present, and that which is waiting to come forth. I see the creativity you possess with the possibilities of what is to come. Therefore, to close today, I remind you of Rob's words that he gave 7 years ago to First Parish Brewster. When things get hard, continue to stay and commit to each other. I know you've done this in the past few years, and I know you will continue to do this. And commit to your spiritual practices. Whatever those look like, they don't need to be perfect, but they will help you to move through the world with more ease in the midst of the known, unknown, and everything in between. This is my invitation to you all, given with so much love and so many more gray hairs than I was here when I was here last. Amen and blessed be.
Our compassionate care extends beyond the walls of this church to communities with whom we share a common interest. Each week, the larger portion of our offering goes to our community partners. This week, our offering will be shared with Free Writers. Free Writers is the only organization in Minnesota providing creative writing opportunities specifically for Hennepin and Ramsey County jail inmates. They reach these inmates at a crucial time in their lives as they sit in jail for days, weeks, months, and sometimes years with no access to emotional wellness programming or any time outdoors, while awaiting oft-delayed court dates. The Free Writers approach helps inmate writers, see that they already possess the talent and will to choose a more rewarding, less perilous path. Free Writers helps participants to personal insight and provide a sorely needed boost in confidence. Our offertory will now be gratefully received. Will the ushers please come forward? May the work of our hands and the generosity of our hearts be given in gratitude this day. Let the offering now be taken.
What a piece of work are we, in all the good ways. You thought that song was going to go a different route, didn't you, when you read it? So I invite you to place your hand on your heart and just take a moment and think, what is waiting to come forth? Or what is needing to be nurtured? Exactly. May you take that spirit of curiosity with you out into the world, out into greeting others, out into spreading a little more love as you go about your way. Amen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.